Joining us now, former Congressman, 7th District Dave Brat, now the Dean of the Business School at Liberty University. Dave, great to have you with us, sir.
Hey, thanks, John. You're doing a great job covering all the news every day. Thank you.
Well, it's so happy to be here. Also, listening in right now, she asked me 3 times what time you were coming on as your number one fan, my wife, Ann, who, as you know, you were her favorite congressman of all time ever.
Love it. Thanks much. Thank you.
So she's fired up. Dave, listen, I want you to break down what is happening here to our economy. Through the month of April, we have shut down production in its entirety across the country almost. And what are the ramifications, Dave Brat, if this continues?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. I've been trying to prepare, some analysis as to what's going on, and I found what I think are the best papers out there in the country, and I'll refer you to those and give the links for your website if folks want them. But, we basically have 2 trains coming at us on the railroad tracks, and there's terrible choices to make. Everyone is familiar with the virus train coming down the tracks, right? Every day on the news, all day, the death toll is rising and in its fullness, and the impact of everyone getting the contagion, and the fear factor is up through the roof. And that's all for real. And those numbers are there. But coupled against that, and this was what makes it so bad, is there's another train coming at us that is inflicting terrible, terrible pain as well, and that's the economic train. And so the epidemiologists do a good job on the virus, but I would refer people to the economic literature, because economics, the best of them, they're responsible for weighing all of the harms to you and to the economy as a whole. We have what's called general equilibrium analysis, and if you miss one variable in that, it's not like the paper's a little off. It's no good. You throw it in the trash bucket, right? So if you abstract from the economic variables, some of this analysis is off by a little. So everybody knows, right, the virus, you want to get to the harm. The virus is exponential, right? Exponential growth. It's increasing at an increasing rate going off the top of the page. The economic data coming in is even more exponential. It's just a vertical straight line. We used to have unemployment claims in the 250,000 region. Then it went to 3 million, right? Just straight out. Everybody go Google Vox if you just want to see some of the good data and charts, VOX. And so you go from 250,000 to straight up off the charts, 3 million jobless claims. And then last week, 10 million jobless claims. And Vox also has a chart showing there's 35 million jobs that are particularly at risk due to the virus itself. And Bloomberg is expecting, Bloomberg News, at the end of April, a number to hit 20 million by the end of April, right? So these are all once in a lifetime, once in a generation. The 2008 financial crisis is not even comparable. This is, people are comparing this to World War II and approaching depression levels if we get to that 35 million jobs, right? There's 300 million people in the country and roughly 150 million in the workforce. And so if you got 35 million jobless claims, that's 20% unemployment rate right there. That's just from the risky, the retailers and the restaurants and everybody. The economic collapse is the great fear. Everybody, I think, by now knows someone who's lost their jobs, good friends who are in a certain industry. Their restaurants are shut, their retail stores shut. How long can they maintain that? And so when you talk about the economy, this is a intricate machine that's developed over time. And there's no data points to look at when we're talking about the degree of damage that's coming at us, right? We live in a highly complex, globalized economic system right now, and that's part of the problem, right? We can get into that later. But I've been reading, folks are saying that the job hits numbers we're experiencing right now are like having a natural disaster in every single state at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that's what it's like having a natural disaster, right? Having your governor to declare a national emergency for your state in every single state at the same time. And then I think your audience gets the idea, the basic economic idea. Just picture a Robinson Crusoe economy, one person on an island, right? If you don't work, if you're Robinson Crusoe, you don't work, you don't have a job, there's zero production. If there's no production, you don't get any consumption. Mm-hmm. And the left, I'm not hearing any of this analysis from the left, the pain that's going to come at us. And so up in D.C., they're doing the $2.3 trillion aggregate demand boost. Well, that's all coming out of debt, right? But you don't get to do that for more than a month or two, and the bond market is going to start yelling at you. And then you start facing the prospect of looking at a completely dysfunctional economy. And so whenever you hear terms like, shelter in place, that's all good, do it, but that means no production.
Right.
And so the sociological literature out there says the impact of these events goes out a decade or two. People that are displaced right now, their wages will be 20% less 20 years from now, right? So any friends we have, neighbors we have, the churches, right, are going to go through horrendous pain here, right? And so, and back in 2008, we had huge losses, and Greenspan said the greatest loss, when he was asked, what's the greatest loss from that 2008 financial crisis, he says, it's the job skills that are lost because it takes a lifetime for people to recover.
Right.
And so I'll just close by mentioning the best paper I've seen out there is by Anna Sherbina at the American Enterprise Institute. And, she tracks $9 trillion in pain, economic pain, absent a lockdown, right? Absent taking the right precautions. That's 43% of GDP. And then her recommendation, which she solves for, and I'll get into this if you want. This is what's missing from the left. It's just they criticize President Trump. They criticize, but they don't have a solution. She says the optimal shutdown when we're going to have to reopen the economy is in 12 weeks. And so we're already 5 weeks in, and so, we got another month and a half on her analysis. And nothing else compares to that.
Dave, I need to get into this a little bit. We're with Dave Brat, former Congressman, 7th District, Republican in Virginia, now the Dean of the Business School at Liberty University. So when you look at her analysis, one of the concerns here is that the cost of this shutdown, let's call it non-production shutdown, continuing on. I think we can all get past April now. We've all you got to get past April. We have the $2.2 trillion going to help some people. But if this thing goes into May, a lot of people who say, well, as soon as the curve bends down, we can turn it on again. Have they ever run a business? I mean, there's nothing to turn on. Once you go under and you have no revenue, and a lot of these businesses have no revenue. Once you have no revenue, there isn't anything to turn on. You know how tough it is to get that revenue stream back? It just doesn't reappear in like a day. So you get these people that are saying, well, when the curve is bent down. And then the other thing that really bothers me is there's no understanding of what the number is, the metric for bending the curve down. That's why I'm so opposed to Steve Bannon's national government shutdown. I think it's insane. Here's why. You'll never get it open again because whatever the number is, those on the other side, the far left, will say it's not good enough. We have to shut it down another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You got the Gates Foundation wanting to shut the country down for 10 weeks. You do that, there's no country.
Yep. No, that is correct. And so the Sherbina article is the only article out in the economics literature right now that does cost benefit and gets into the relevant range, right? So the left right now, if you go read Politico, they had a piece out with 7 experts, and they were supposed to talk about the total economic damage. They never mentioned a number, right? So the left, they just love talking about things, but then they say, well, but there's all these deaths, so we got to just shut it all down. And so, that's why I'm doing this right now. Is all of this is going to come down on President Trump's shoulders, right? So he's going to have a Solomon's choice moment coming up when his intuition. Thank goodness he gets business, and so he gets what you just said. You don't get to just play around with this like it's some machine that you just get to turn on and off. Once you destroy it, it's destroyed. And once you shut down businesses and their employees leave, they're going to be, going off rationally to try and find some other job. And so then they don't get to go back to maybe the higher skilled job they had because they're already locked into some new employment, and it's a disaster all around. And so President Trump is going to have to make this decision. The left is going to, they're already, the whole narrative is already set out against them. It's just unbelievable when you go read Politico and these leftist rags up in D.C. And so
what do they want, Dave? Dave, what do they want?
Yeah.
They
want a socialist regime with power, and Trump doesn't fit in that, so they got to get rid of him.
Thank you.
And that's what they want.
Thank you. Because that is exactly what a lot of us feel, that the far left in this country is almost cheering some kind of a catastrophic economic disaster. They don't care how many people are hurt by it, how many suicides there are, how many people die, how many businesses go under, as long as they can get their vision of A, get rid of Trump, and B, have some kind of a socialistic society rise in its wake. And, it's tough to say this on the air. We don't want to say it on the air. But you've got to say to yourself, where are they going with this, right?
Well, there's evidence that it's not just theoretical either. Nancy Pelosi last week, and any Democrat who doesn't stand up and speak against Pelosi, what she's doing here, should be booted out of office immediately. If they don't respond immediately to what Pelosi did, she said we need a kind of a 9/11 style inquiry into the causes of coronavirus going after Trump.
Unbelievable,
right? Talking about the 1 month lag or whatever. What the Democrats, all the Democrats, were horrified when Trump did start taking measures a month in, and the Democrats were screaming at him, saying the Chinese shutdown was awful and whatever. And Nancy Pelosi's in Chinatown in New York in March saying, come on, let's have a party. Come on here. There's nothing to worry about, right? So the hypocrisy here, everybody makes mistakes. The country isn't ready to go 100% in every respect. And when you live in a federal system, it's even tougher, right? But the president is doing all he can here. And now Pelosi's up a 9/11 inquiry. And why is that important? Because now the official government, right, the federal government and all the agencies you see, now they're going to be second-guessing everything they say that involves risk. And this whole thing, what I just laid out, involves risk, right? It's one set of damage against another.
Right.
Because every email they send out, every phone call they make, every regulation that they decide to recall, every new experimental drug that may save lives, is going to be slowed down because Nancy Pelosi just decreed that everyone's going to have an email trail for lawyers to follow, and if you make a mistake, you're going to be in big trouble with financial, and you could, losing your job, losing your finances, and maybe even going to jail by breaking the law, right? So that's what Pelosi just put in place during a national crisis and pandemic, which they're all shrieking about. She lays down that political card. So any Democrat politician that does not say no to her right now, they ought to be booted out of office immediately.
Let me ask you something. We're with Dave Brat, former Congressman, 7th District, Virginia, also now the Dean of the Business School at Liberty University in Lynchburg. Dave, let me ask you this. There has been a number of political narratives blasting the president's cheering on of the malaria drug along with Z-Pak that seems to be successful in some cases, and you got a lot of the far left saying he shouldn't be saying it's a cure, he's not qualified, he shouldn't be saying it. What is the motivation for that? I mean, a lot of doctors are saying it works.
Yeah, no, I know. The president's been following the best science, the best data, and, that's another thing. The left's been going off on this, the evangelical. They want to split the evangelical vote. They say the evangelicals are anti-science, which is just absurd. And then they say, Republicans' acknowledgement that the economy matters is a sign of this or whatever. And so it is political on the left. But the left, I just want to reemphasize this, the left isn't doing any science at all when it comes to the economic harm to the country. Mm-hmm. Right? They always accuse you of what they're missing. Right? So they don't have any cost-benefit analysis studies out saying what their optimal shutdown point is. Right? So you show me the best science, right, dear lefty buddies, right, because it's not there, and you're just all making stuff up. So when it comes to this drug you just mentioned, the key word you mentioned is doctors are saying this. Mm-hmm. There's a very highly regarded doctor up in New York who said he had 72 senior patients that he treated with the combination of those two drugs, and that 0 of them went into the hospital for the deeper, pneumonia type problems. And he said, I had my kids, do the probability of that, and it's through the roof, right? So is it a double-blind science study? No. But when you have 100 doctors, and these are doctors, right? These are 12 years after high school of high-end education. When you got doctors telling you hundreds at a time that this drug is having an effect in the field, you listen to them.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, he's 72 for 72. But
right.
You would think that the people on the left, all Americans, would be cheering this on, like maybe
We all
there's
ought to
hope
be
here.
cheering.
Excited about it. Hey, you know what? Maybe. Instead, they criticize the president for bringing it up, and it's almost as if they want it to fail. I mean, you hate to say that on the air, but that is what I've heard. Does the president face, I asked my wife about this Sunday, does the president face a Truman's, you called it a Solomon's choice, does he face a Truman's choice at the end of the war in Japan, where he had 2 choices? Japan was not going to surrender. One, drop 2 nuclear bombs, horrible. The second, invade, super horrible. Is that the kind of choice Trump has?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be lives, right? I mean, we're going to look back. I don't want to speculate too, but we're going to get back to a point where we're going to have to open up the economy with live cases of the virus going on and still spreading around, right? Just not at the same rate, right? There won't be huge numbers. But that will be the case. So at some point in time, unless you want to destroy Western civilization and shut down the economy and live under a bridge and catch fish again, right, and truly have a Robinson Crusoe economy, you better save this economy. And I think your intuition is about right. We can make it through April. Everybody ought to tamp it down, follow all the rules, right?
Absolutely.
Social distancing. But come May, there's already all these restaurants, all these small little restaurants, right? They're living week to week, paycheck to paycheck. They don't have any savings buffer to put up against lost revenues. And so the president's going to make a tough choice on behalf of the American people, and he's going to crack it open. And you can crack it open in smart ways, right? You don't have to have everyone on top of each other in stores. There's ways you can still run a business and be clever and whatever, and that's probably the way we're going to have to go.
Dave, we're out of time. I really want to thank you for being on. I got to get back to having you on every week like we did for such a long time, and I want to thank you for your analysis today, and you're spot on. The president has a Solomon's choice. It's a tough choice he has to make. But what I've been saying here for 3 weeks is if we shut down production and the economy, there's nothing to come back to. So it doesn't make any sense. We have to find a way out.
Yeah, and I just want to say one other thing on behalf of the president, because this thing gets political because the left and Nancy Pelosi are making it political. It is not reciprocal. You don't see Republicans lobbing political bombs right now, or at least I haven't seen it. You see the president complimenting the governor of New York, Cuomo, daily for working together. And he's big enough to work with everybody in a crisis. Mm-hmm. And so the political piece, if you and I are weighing in on the politics, it's because the left is lobbing bombs in the middle of a crisis, and the Republicans are not returning fire in the same way. And I think that's crucial to mention.
Dave, thanks for being with us. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, John. Anytime
Dave,
they win.
Dave Brat, we're going to have you on again next week. John Fredericks Radio Network.